Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Do I want to talk about the 76ers? No, they're horrendous. Do I think it's important to talk about the 76ers? Yes. Yes, I do. You have Chris Paul rumors. How about the head coach? What's going on with the head coach? Let's talk. Let's start with Chris Paul. Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer is reporting that the Sixers seriously debated going after Chris Paul. Does that mean they once thought about it and the thought is no longer there? Does that mean they seriously debated doing it and it's still a conversation of, hey, should we? Does seriously debated mean, well, they debated and they think it's the right move, so let's attack? That information we don't really have yet. But we do know that the Sixers seriously debated going after Chris Paul. Well, there's so many ways that you can look at that statement. But let's say that means they want to go down that road. Does it make sense for the Sixers? Yes. Moving on from these contracts, they need to do something. They need to find a way to mix up this roster. Yet again, they need to do it. Even though I said it was ridiculous every year, you're bringing in new pieces, you're making 5 obnoxious moves every single time. While I do agree that there's been way too much turnover, well, now with the new head coach, what the hell is the difference at this point? You know this doesn't work. You need to mix something up. So from a Sixer standpoint, you bring in a ball handler that's not Shake Milton getting added to the starting rotation for playoff runs. He's a veteran player. He's experienced. He can run a traditional offense, and he can work with Ben Simmons when it comes to being a primary ball handler guy. I still want Ben Simmons to have the ball in his hands, but if Chris Paul is here, there's no doubt that CP3 is going to be running more of the offense than Ben. I'd have to see what it looks like. I'm not super thrilled with Ben Simmons playing the stretch for the power forward. I want him more with the ball in his hands, but right now I know that this structure doesn't work, so I'm open to any sort of conversation when it comes to making a change. But when I look at OKC, why would they want to do it? Why would the Thunder want to do it? They're obviously going in a different direction. They have a new head coach that's going to be hired. Does that new head coach have a say in what type of roster he wants? That also comes into effect with the Sixers as well. Does the new head coach that they hire have a say in, well, I want Al Horford? Or, let's use Billy Donovan as an example, which we will dive more into. Billy Donovan coached Al Horford. Does he want Al Horford? Does he think he can use Al Horford next to Joel Embiid and make this offense look different? But going back to OKC, they're in a different mode. They're transitioning. They have so many first-round draft picks. They're going to get young. Why move CP3? Does it have to do with that $41 and $44 million cap hit? It's not like they're going after Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James and all of these lethal stars where they're going to have to spend stupid money in the offseason. So with that being said, I don't know why that cap hit would be that much of a difference to them. And why would they want to take on something like $26, $27 million for the next handful of years with Al Horford? Why would that be in play? Does it have something to do with wanting that veteran experience there for a longer period of time than what Chris Paul would be? Because Chris Paul would be there for a handful of seasons and Al Horford would be there for longer? I get wanting veteran experience in the locker room when you have younger players in the league. That makes a lot of sense. But are you going to make this move because of that? Does Al Horford move the needle for you that much that you're willing to spend that much money on him just to be a teacher in the locker room for some of these first-round draft picks that you are going to utilize? I don't see how this helps OKC other than that. Can he play next to Steven Adams? He couldn't play next to Joel Embiid. Now, it's not like Steven Adams is there long term. I don't know what the deal with him is, though, moving forward. Would they want to keep him? Would they want to sign him? Would they want to trade him? But he doesn't work as the 4. Steven Adams isn't a 4. Is that even a recipe for success to put him in OKC right now in that specific spot? No, the answer is no. So why would the Thunder want to do it? The only thing that I can somewhat grab onto is they want veteran experience for years to come, and they think that he can provide that for some of these players that are going to be entering the league so raw. It's so different going from, is there even going to be a college basketball season? I don't know. Apparently, the ACC wants to have a NCAA tournament where every single team makes the damn tournament. I don't even know what the hell is happening with college ball, but Going to a professional level, 82 games, you're on the road all the time. It's a different atmosphere. You're making different money. You got to make sure you're associated with the right people. Someone like Al Horford is beneficial, but is it worth what you're paying? And does it fit your narrative? Does it fit your blueprint of where the organization is headed fully? I don't know. I feel this is more wishful thinking from the Sixers standpoint. Well, look, this will make sense. Look, why don't they do this? But in reality, why would they? Why would the Thunder go down that road? I think it's more us searching for the reality. Now, if they sweeten the pot enough, if they're giving up enough, it's not just going to be Al Horford. If they sweeten the deal, they throw in picks, they move on from somebody else that they're intrigued by. Well, now it's a different conversation. I wonder if it's going to take a Matisse Thybulle to get rid of one of these contracts. And at this point, you know what? They are so handcuffed that I wouldn't be against it. I like Matisse Thybulle, don't get me wrong, but you put yourself in this hole, you put yourself in hell, you're going to have to dig yourself out of hell somehow. And is it Matisse Thybulle for the next handful of years with these contracts, or you don't have either of them? Well, I'm taking you don't have either of them, because this is such a terrible situation to be in. It's so awful. It's so awful. You're not going to be able to do anything unless you find a way to move on. I would be intrigued by CP3 here. The offense will look completely different, but I want to see how Ben Simmons is then going to be utilized. I want Ben Simmons out on the fast break, and I think you will see that because that's his best attribute other than passing the basketball, which also means he needs the ball in his hands. It would be a different look, but him as the screen setter, I don't want him standing at the elbow and looking and waiting and looking and waiting all the time. But yes, I do think it would be valuable for Chris Paul. The thing is, I also am not going to have, no matter what they do, no matter what type of moves they make, I'm not going into next season going, oh, it's an NBA Finals year. I'm not. That would be silly for me to do that. They clearly are missing something right now when it comes to roster construction. And I think that they're far away when it comes to roster construction. Now, with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, you have something there. You have sustained stars that you believe in that will one day bring you to that championship, but I just don't think the answer is right now. To me, it's not ironic that Jimmy Butler is now 30 years old and he's making the type of run that he's making in the postseason. They have good roster construction, and he's stepping up being the leader at 30 years old. I think that's very important to be a specific age in this league and taking that big step. Jimmy Butler is doing that right now, and he's that age. It's not ironic to me. I do question, though, Joel Embiid to this degree. It's 2020. You see the Rockets right now playing Robert Covington at the 5. Now, I don't expect the Sixers to go down that road of taking 53s per game. It seems like the Rockets are taking 93s per game. I don't think that they're going to transform into that type of team, but I don't know if a big man works in 2020. Throw it down on the low block. Go get your twos. Go get your go dominate. Go get your points. Oh, yeah? Guess what? The other team is countering with threes. The other team is taking double your amount of threes. I don't know if that's a recipe for success in 2020. To me, it's all on Ben Simmons. When Ben Simmons is ready, this team will go on that ride. When Ben Simmons is ready to take over, that's when this organization is going to be the successful one. Here's the bad news. It's going to take a bit of time. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take patience. Sort of like Giannis. Everyone's freaking out. Oh, Giannis. Oh, I can't believe it. He's more of a Pippen than he is a Jordan. 25. 25 years old. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. He's not ready to take that next step yet. And it doesn't help that his supporting cast wasn't playing very strong. But to me, he's not ready yet. Sorry. People demand excellence instantly. Yes, you know what? He was an MVP. You know what? He dominates the regular season. But how many times have I told you this? Playoff basketball is different. Playoff basketball is not the same as regular season basketball. You can dominate regular season hoops all you want when you play the Suns and the Knicks and all these other teams. And even when you play some of the top teams during the regular season matchups, it doesn't have the same effect as it does in the postseason. So you need to learn. You need to experience postseason blows after postseason blows for you to really groom as a player. If you played 4,000 regular season games and you played 10 postseason games, you really only get what you need to get out of those 10 postseason games. You need to experience that to really grow and develop, and that's why I was crushed that Ben Simmons didn't get to perform at all during this last postseason run, because to me, that's what's more important for these guys to grow. So Giannis isn't ready at all. This, you can't win with him. You can't do this with him. He can't shoot. That's crushing him. Yeah, you know what? Him not shooting is crushing him, and him losing this round should force him to now be, instead of a 30% shooter from three, more of a 35, more of a 36, 37. You need to experience the low blows and the painful losses in postseason play to take that next step. So to think that, you can never win with Giannis, I love that. You can never win with these guys after they lose a postseason game. Oh, yeah? Never? Or maybe just not right now. Or maybe it takes time for players to do certain things. Do you want to use the outliers? The LeBron Jameses of the world? The Kobe's? There's always outliers. But you can't build your philosophy and build your team based off of the outliers. That doesn't make sense. It's hard to do. Winning a championship is so hard to do, even for the superstars. And here's what I mean by that. Kevin Durant had to leave. And we know how Kevin Durant is. He's phenomenal. Puts the ball on the floor at that size, electric, gets to the rim. I mean, his ability to shoot the ball is just beautiful. It's poetry, right? He's so lethal. He's unstoppable at that size. He had to leave to join the Warriors to win. He hasn't won by himself, and he did win the finals MVP, and he was special in those finals, but it's a lot easier to be special when you need to go out and guard a Steph Curry because he's going to make it splash, or Klay Thompson. Compared to if Steph and Klay aren't on the floor, you can maybe suffocate Kevin Durant differently. Not that that's going to stop him completely, because it's hard to stop elite offense. It changes the game when you need to make sure you're out by the perimeter, stopping Klay and Steph Curry if they get the ball as well. It's that hard. The best scorer we have in the game right now, and Kevin Durant, needed help. He needed to leave at the age of 27, which is the prime years that I talk about winning a championship. So to just ridicule someone like Giannis, and this ties perfectly with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, it's just obnoxious. Now, I'm going to be hard on Ben. I'm going to be hard on these players because I need to see steps in the right direction. I need to see more of that three-point shooting from the corner, because it's obvious that Ben Simmons is getting more comfortable taking those corner threes. You see it all over the place. It's there. You can see the stroke. It's better than what it once was. I want to see him get to the free throw line more. I'm going to be hard. It's okay to realize two things. It takes time, and they need to continue to add. And I demand more aggression. Like, you can do both. Be frustrated that, that maybe they're not being as aggressive as you want them to be, yet understanding it takes time to groom and develop. Players don't dominate to championships at the age of 22, 23 years old. There's always outliers, but you can't build your team based off the outliers. That would be foolish. It takes time. Sadly, it takes time. Now, let's get to Billy Donovan. Before we do, this episode of Sports Talk with Bros is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power, and with over 20 years of experience in the industry, they are home to your solar experts in both residential and commercial projects. They are dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Make sure you check out their information. It's in the description. Billy Donovan got ripped for losing a 3-1 series lead with KD, Russell Westbrook, and there was a couple of years that he should be fired. He can't get the job done. He is a superstar. Now, all of a sudden, he's the guy. That doesn't add up to me. Now, he had a good season. He had a team that was projected to not do much, and they made a forceful Game 7 happen, and they were entertaining. I get that. Players had good seasons. But how do you go from, well, this guy can't do it, to hold on a second. Oh, maybe because there's growing involved. There's developing involved as well when it comes to coaching. And that's something I said about Brett Brown as well. Now, sadly, he took a big dive in the wrong direction this past season, but when you saw what he did once he made the playoffs, okay, he didn't do good against Brad Stevens and the Celtics. What did he do the next year? He got to the second round, and he ended up going 7 games with the eventual champions. And I'm told that Nick Nurse is some elite, insane game changer. Well, he went 7 games with an elite game-changing head coach. So what does that tell you? You saw progression. You saw him grow during that series. Now, he took a dive in the wrong direction, but I bring that up because, all right, that shows that there's growth in sports all around. With players, with coaches, for the limited role that I think the coaches have, I think that they can learn. Well, Billy Donovan was getting destroyed to the point where everyone thought that he should get fired. How can you lose that series? What an awful coach. And then he has grown more into this coach that people now believe can get the job done. If they hired Billy Donovan, I would be okay with it. I wouldn't be jumping up for joy screaming, we got the game-changing guy. I wouldn't be pissed off either. There's only a hand for me. There's only literally 3 guys in the NBA that really move the needle for me. The rest are just guys. The rest are just coaches. You know, it's not ironic that there's so many teams where people discuss, and I bring this up because we had Keith Smith of Yahoo Sports, covers the NBA, on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, and he was talking about Budenholzer and what type of coach he was, and maybe he's the guy that sets the team up for success, and then a new coach would come in and change it up, and he would be the new coach to figure it out, sort of like a Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr situation. And then I counter that by saying, Keith, isn't it interesting that you can go down the list of all of these organizations, and there's so many organizations that seem to be in that situation where, well, they have a nice coach, but the next coach, they need that next coach to take them over the top. How many organizations can you say that about? Majority of the NBA. So what does that tell you? It's not as if these Popoviches of the world that people scream for are available. They're not all available. There's not this huge open market of Popoviches out there in the world that you can just grab. They're just guys. And it comes down to the players stepping up and making the plays and being willing to be the dominating force that they need to be. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to the players doing it and being the one. Stan Van Gundy, the guy that people are intrigued by because they hear him on the broadcast and they think, oh, he's such a smart coach, although he's been fired all over the place, right? He said the superstars set the culture. He was talking about the head coaches and the culture. The superstars set the culture in the locker room. And that's reality. That's not to say coaches have zero impact. It's to say that their impact is limited and it's way more on other things other than the coach. The coach does have an impact when it comes to postseason ball. All right, if Budenholzer's not playing Giannis, well, that's hard to think it's even possible, right? He needs to play the superstar talent. So he does control that side of things. They do have an impact. It's just a limited impact. And there's not all these guys out there that can just change everything. So Billy Donovan coming in, okay, I'd be all right with it. I wouldn't be screaming, jumping for joy. There's no one out there that really does it. It's funny. Ty Lue wins an NBA title, which is what people want, yet they don't give it any respect. Well, you could put it in the outlier category because of LeBron James, and I mentioned how some players are outliers that you can't really relate the rest to. And okay, if you tie that together, that makes sense. But you have a guy who won an NBA title, yet people are Ty Lue, But the difference is those people who go to Ty Lue are the same that imply that coaching matters more than I think it does. So if that's the case, look at that resume. Look at that resume without applying the name Ty Lue. You'd faint to have that man. You would drop to the floor to have that type of coaching on this team. Just looking at the resume, and now all of a sudden, it's not enough. I just think that obviously it was the right decision for the Sixers to move on. It was time. They needed a whole new change from roster to everything happening in the front office, to be clear, right from the jump. They got to figure out the structure and the power struggle, and then they need to figure out a new head coach, and they got to figure out the roster. There's so much that they need to change with this organization, but, I just think it's interesting when you look at these head coaches, we need to change, and I do think we needed a change. I just don't like the way that the fans went about it. Yeah, you need a change. Okay. Now what? Because everyone who's brought up, it seems to be, he'll be all right, but Here's Budenholzer. Now, I don't think he's going to get canned, but it's possible the Bucks make a change. Nobody would want him, right? But if I asked you halfway through the season, Budenholzer, trust me, everyone and their mother would have signed up for that. The head coaching search is just, it's interesting to me. Hearing the names, hearing the reaction to the names, and thinking what type of impact a new head coach is going to make. I think it's set by the players. And Jimmy Butler was saying, look, you'll see. You'll see. Remember when he said that? You'll see. Well, I think he showed us. And I'm not even rooting against Jimmy Butler. I know everyone's going back to I put up a video a while back when Jimmy Butler wanted to go to the Heat, and I said, Jimmy Butler confuses me. Why would he want to go to the Heat when the Sixers have a championship type team here? And it's funny to go back and listen to that now. At the time, I got sucked down the road of look at what this team can do, yada, yada, yada. We know the story. I don't want to ever think about it again, but I'm rooting for the guy. I really am. How can you hate that type of competitive nature? But I do think that there's a reason why that is succeeding at the age that he is now succeeding at. He didn't have much playoff success before, and to be fair, it wasn't as if he had the type of talent to do it, but if you look at a Jimmy Butler in Chicago and Minnesota, you have a different grown version of Jimmy Butler. I think he has learned how to utilize that fire that he has and that dog mentality to be a proper leader with it and not just be an obnoxious, over-the-top, aggressive guy who just uses his passion for the game as some insane, dominating force. I think that he found a way to use it properly, and that came with age, and now that he's at a specific age, he's going on this run. Like, for example, the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum is more of their player that dominates over anybody else, I would say. No, Kemba Walker's in the mix as well. And what age is Kemba Walker? Kemba Walker is 30 years old. And I think that it matters that you have that type of impact player at that age when going on some sort of run. I'm not just making up stuff. I'm using the history of the league to support my answers. So because of the title, the process, there was this false hope that as soon as the process was over, championships come year after year after year, and people forgot that there needs to be time after you get those picks. And once again, I'm going to be hard. I'm going to be super hard on Ben and Joel. At the same time, I get there needs to be patience. So I need to find the mix of both. Would you trade Giannis? If Giannis was on the Sixers right now, right? 25 years old, and they had the type of playoff series that they just had, would you say, trade Giannis, he stinks. No, when you have that type of talent, you go. You go and you go and you go. When you have that type of talent, you push forward and you put all your eggs in one basket and you try to win with that talent. Well, with the Sixers, when you have this type of talent, you continue to try and win with this talent. You move the surrounding pieces. And you know what? Maybe it comes down to, at some point, moving on from Joel Embiid. That's the way I would go. Some way, you move on from him down the road if this doesn't work in a couple seasons. Okay. Because I do think it's tough to win with a center that's that dominant, that ball heavy. But it's not the time now. To me, the answer is never going to be Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was first team all defense, by the way. It's crazy. In the city of Philadelphia, that doesn't get acknowledged. In the city of Philadelphia, Ben Simmons' defense, it just gets thrown under the rug. Excuse me? In the city of Philly, where you fall in love with a dude named Aaron Rowan who runs into the wall? He runs into the wall and breaks his nose, and that guy's a savior in this city. Yet someone like Ben Simmons, who's first team all defense, and his defense is elite, and he guards superstars, and he guards NBA All-Stars. He needs to shoot more. which he does, but how do you not recognize what he does on the other side, which changes outcomes at the same time? It's ridiculous to me. It's frustrating to me. This whole team is frustrating, no doubt. He's frustrating, no doubt. But it is what it is right now, and I'm not willing to give up on a Ben Simmons. So that's where we are right now with the Sixers. That's where I stand. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.